Do you notice any life changes when people go from being broke to middle class to then wealthy to then like ultra wealthy in terms of maybe how they think, their mentors, time management?
I think you can't be what you can't see more than anything. And so what I've noticed is every time you can get in a room where other people's Tuesday is your dream day, you end up making more money. And so I'm always fascinated by what happens when I get around a billionaire. They just think different than you and I do, and so a lot of times I'll write about what billionaires are like. And it's because of a crazy fascination I have with like, how do you have so much abundance in your mind that you even think that's possible? It's like still hard for me to categorize what like $1 billion would look like if you were going to touch it. And yet there are some people that they wouldn't do a job or they wouldn't do a business if they don't think it is going to be $1 billion business. And so the biggest difference I see from the really big and the really small is that they really like risk and they want you to sort of play, hey, 10 years down the future, how big do we win from this? Because they value their time so intensely that 10-year period better be orders of magnitude. Otherwise, they're just not going to play the game. And so I think, a lot of times in business, I think about a little bit like sports. A lot of us just play these games and we don't think about opportunity costs at all. We don't realize that like every time we're watching Netflix or we are selling something tiny or we are staying in a job we don't like, it's not just that we're not making more money today. It's that compounds over time until the very end of time. And so that's one thing that I think is really different between the two. And maybe the other thing that's different between the really rich and the poor is when they see somebody who has more money than them, they're really curious as to how they got it, and they don't at all see that negatively. Like if we were sitting here with some of my friends who have billions of dollars, they would probably not talk very much. They would ask a ton of questions. They'd be like you guys. One of my friends had dinner with Warren Buffett, and he said the funniest thing happened. He's a multi-billion-dollar hedge fund. He's a great guy. He sat down with Warren and they went to dinner and he was like prepared. He had his questions, he has his research. He sits down with Warren, starts talking to him. And every time he started asking him a question, Warren flipped it and asked him a question. And so I'm like, well, so what did you learn? He's like, what I learned is that Warren only asked me things. He totally, brain raped me for everything that I knew. And I didn't even think about it because I was trying to impress the guy kind of. And at the end of the conversation, I'm much less rich than he is, but he probably learned more from me than I did at that dinner.
It's funny. I sometimes do that when I don't want to talk. I'll just start asking people questions and let them talk because I just don't feel like it.
Yeah.
So you just flip it. Maybe Warren Buffett.
There's so many advantages to that, though. It's like the be interested, not interesting.
Yeah.
Like the Dale Carnegie thing.
I guess
Very.
so.
Well, and think about it. If you play a game of money, what is money? It's really just like a knowledge transfer or a trust transfer. You're just like, it's kind of like what you guys, I think, are doing here, which is, okay, if I want to make more money today and I have a goal, maybe I want to create a podcast that makes as much money as your guys's. What would I be doing in a perfect scenario? I would be sitting down with Graham and Jack and I would be saying, how does this work? How many people do you have here? How did you get the views? What does the data look like that you guys look like? So what do you like thumbnails? How many times do we do it? Oh, do you guys analyze it the same way as this other podcast provider is? I would be like really curious about all of your stuff. And I kind of wouldn't care if you thought I was big time or interesting. I would just be diving more into what you do. And so I think the really, really rich, they're almost always insatiably curious or they're totally uninterested.
Do you think that they're happier than the average person?
I mean, the data seems to show us we're happier up to at least $500,000 in annual income. I do think that money decreases misery. I don't know if it increases happiness. And I think we should realize that more often. But I would say the really, really rich that I know are the ones that are happy, are from they're like a couple hundred millionaires. The billionaires are different because they get to shape the world at their fingertips. Like when you talk to a Joe Lonsdale who runs Palantir, for instance, he is so uninterested in small problems and he plays at a totally different playing field. And so I do think in order to do that, you're probably not optimized for happiness. You're optimized for achievement.
So what would you say it is that you're optimizing for in your own life right now? Is it achievements?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, I think at the end of the day, the most fun game to play is building. And if you can get bit with the building bug, then nothing else is that interesting. And maybe that's how billionaires think in some way too. It's like, I want to know actually what I'm capable of. I don't know if you guys ever think about that.
Capable in terms of what though?
Like, what could I build? What is the biggest, most impactful thing I could build on this planet?
And the metric would be money.
The reason I went on the internet is because I also want an impact. At some point, to me, money is not that interesting. Up until you have enough of it, you guys should find out for yourself. You should go try to get as rich as possible. I think that's awesome. But then you get to a certain point where you're like, what are you gonna buy? I'm not into yachts. I'm not into all this crazy stuff. I wouldn't even buy a plane.
Even buy a plane?
No, I think it seems wasteful. Like, I would use it. And sometimes we do, but like having one outright, I don't know. I don't know if I do. Maybe unless security became an issue or something like that. But impact, like, that's cool. At the end of, like, when I die, I hope there are a lot of people that are like, I'm glad she was here. That like meant something. And so even if there's nothing after this, people could be like, hey, she like helped my life in some way.
But you know what? While we're on this topic, it really got me thinking about what the future has in store for businesses. Because if you ask 9 different experts, you're going to get 10 different answers. From a bull market, a bear market, stocks are going up, stocks are going down. It'd be really helpful to have a crystal ball at this point.
But until that happens, over 40,000 businesses have already future-proofed their business with NetSuite by Oracle, the #1 cloud ERP bringing accounting, financial management, inventory, and HR into one fluid platform. And plus, with just one unified business management suite, you have just one source of truth, giving you all of the visibility and control you need to make quick decisions.
With real-time insights and forecasting, you're peering into the future with actionable data. Not to mention, when you're able to close the book in days and not weeks, you're spending less time looking backwards and more time on what's next. So whether your company is earning millions or even hundreds of millions, NetSuite helps you respond to immediate challenges and seize your biggest opportunities.
And speaking of opportunity, you can download the CFO's Guide to AI and Machine Learning today for free at netsuite.com/iced. Once again, the guide is completely free. netsuite.com/iced. netsuite.com/iced with the link down below in the description.
Thank you, NetSuite, for sponsoring today's podcast. And now let's get back to the episode.